Hello and welcome to the next video in our Rust projects series. During the coming up video in our Rust projects series, looking at PostgreSQL and how we can interact with that using Diesel, which is an object relational model for databases, and that is built in Rust. Before we can do that, of course, we need to install PostgreSQL, and actually there are a couple of tricky parts that it's worth going through. On Linux, you can just generally do an apt install of PostgreSQL, and it will take a little while to install. And then the program you can use to log in will be PSQL. But if we try and do that directly, we will get the error, role Matthew does not exist. That's saying it's trying to use our role login to Linux as our login for PSQL, but we haven't created that role inside PSQL. Now, PostgreSQL has a role called Postgres, which is basically its admin, and it creates that role when it's started. So to log in as that, we can use sudo-u to change our user to Postgres, and then run the program PSQL. From here, you can see some help options by typing help, or you can get extra information by typing / and then any of these options here, and they will bring up a useful bit of information for things that you can do. So we're going to create a role for Matthew, and we're going to, create role Matthew, login, inherit. So we say we want this guy to have the ability to log in and inherit from any other role that he is associated with. We're now going to grant the role of Postgres to Matthew. So in theory, Matthew can then do everything that Postgres can. This now means that Matthew exists as an account, and we should be able to log in directly without needing to go in via superuser as another user on the system. We could do this for every user on the system if we wish to. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to give Matthew a password. This isn't so that we can log in on the system, but it is so that we can use other mechanisms like Diesel setup to access this directly without being logged in as us. So alter user Matthew with password and then pacdemo password. If you're doing this over a network instead, you'll probably want to use the \password command. So I tried to log into PSQL, but unfortunately the database Matthew doesn't exist. So now we're going to log back into PSQL as Postgres, and we're going to create a new database called Matthew, because the default database anyone's going to log into is the database with their own name. You actually don't need to do this because you can just log into whatever database you choose to create. Now if we type PSQL, we log in to the database Matthew by default, and now we can do standard SQL commands like create table. And here we're going to give an ID called, and that's serial, and a name which is varchar, and semicolon. And it says it's created the table. And if we do select star from demo table, we now get the fact that it has an ID and a name and 0 rows. So now that we've installed PostgreSQL,